Another anonymous question now for you. The question from Anonymous is, what can I say or do to already initiated practitioners of Krishna consciousness, God brothers, sisters, who have become burned out, jaded, and close-hearted?
Well, I would, if they're friends of yours, Mr. and Mrs. Anand, I would just try to deal with them with affection and see if they're open, if they open up a little to affection. I mean, there are people who, one thing I always see about, devotees in general, it's always very sad to see if somebody becomes cynical. I mean, it's one thing to become sarcastic. I mean, all of us have a little bit of vein of sarcasm in us, and that's way different than cynicism. And when it comes to devotional things, first of all, I've never seen that our acharyas are cynical. And if I might find somebody if I find somebody who's sarcastic, then I think you have to draw the line, be able to see the difference between sarcasm and cynicism. Sometimes sarcasm, humor can be very irreverential, so to speak, and who cares? I mean, all of us are a little bit irreverent and sometimes a little sarcastic. We should be very careful not to commit Vaishnava aparadh. But in general, there's one thing, and I know Govinda Maharaj, he would often joke with sarcasm. For instance, his remark where he said, I'm like Lord Jagannath. I have no hands and I have no legs and I have no legs, but I have eyes and I see everything. Like that, paraphrasing it a little bit. But he said, I have no hand. I'm like Lord Jagannath. I have no hands and I have no legs, but I have eyes. So Govinda Maharaj was by that remark showing that he would see all the mistakes and errors that those around him, his friends and the devotees, would do. And often he didn't comment about it so as to not cause any pain, but he would be aware of everything. And his saying no hands and legs, because he didn't always take action, didn't always speak about what he saw that was wrong, etc. Because he like I said, he didn't want to cause pain, or sometimes he wouldn't speak at the moment, but he would make a reference, sometimes even a little bit, you had to catch it. He would make a remark maybe months later, and you know exactly what he was referring to. But I consider that, and I consider many of the things that Govinda Maharaj told us, his jokes, his humor, there was always some element of sarcasm sometimes in his remark. But he was never cynic, and he was, as he in his own words said, he was never hopeless. He says, I am always hopeful, I am never hopeless. So there are many things in life that we could say would make us hopeless. Many catastrophes, or many confrontations, or many problems that we may encounter in our own personal life that could make somebody hopeless. But Govinda Maharaj, he remarked to me, he says, I am always hopeful, I'm never hopeless. So sometimes if I find somebody who Anonymous is describing, then I will try to deal with that person with affection, because there is no other way of doing it. I feel, unless you just feel that the person is so much treading so heavily making Vaishnava aparad, that you don't want anything to deal with that person, then you may just say something like, Prabhu, I'm not going to hear these things. I won't hear these things. You may feel that way, but I feel you're in a dangerous position or something. You could say that, but sometimes we have to be a little like doctors, you might say. We're trying to cure the patient. We're not trying to kill the patient. So how to be able to do that? I mean, and I remember one incident in Calcutta. With it seems somebody's come to the door. Let me see. But hello. Dhanyavad.
We just have
Dhanyavad.
Why don't we send Ethan and Karuna and you can put the stuff on his table?
Or you can give it to me.
Go give it to him. Yeah, go ahead, honey. Go ahead.
What is this?
It's a pickle.
A pickle.
And some bread.
And some bread, okay.
You can
And some
try it.
mangoes.
And
Okay.
there's this as well, Maharaj. I don't
And
know what it is, but
I know what it is. Coconut.
ooh, is it good?
Yeah, it's very good.
I don't think
You
I've
digest
ever
all
Let me
the
put it
rich
on the
food.
table. I'll just, here are the mangoes. Who gave the mangoes? You?
They're from all of us.
Durima, I think. Go
Okay,
ahead.
here. Dorima. Here.
Yeah, we're just gonna talk to
You can
Sanatani,
put that in the refrigerator.
and Sanatani said just to come, have them come with us when we come on Wednesdays, and we'll try to help and do class and do our best and just do our usual. And
Okay.
then when we get more steady and everyone feels comfortable, we'll start doing puja and more stuff. We got a lot
She
of-
goes,
We got a lot
So
of.
we got here Karuna. We have Leela, Madhurima, and
Ethan.
Ishan. Ethan. Oh, I thought you said Ishan. Ishan.
That
Cool
sounds
name.
better.
That's a cool
I would
name.
love for him to have a spiritual name, actually. But, yeah. We'll get
Okay.
there.
Yeah, we're
All
dynamic
right.
too. Okay, we know you have a
All
call
right.
coming.
Well, yeah, I'm on Zoom with the London devotees.
Nice.
Dhanyavad.
London.
Okay, Maharaj.
All right, thank you.
Maharaj, one question. My question is, what would you recommend when this kind of thought about hopelessness comes? And I think that eventually comes to everyone at some point, I believe, maybe.
Well, I mean, hopelessness is not synonymous either with pessimism. Sometimes people can be realistic and it will sound like pessimism.
Mm.
But I'm just remarking what Govinda Mars told me. He said, I am always hopeful. I'm never hopeless. And I think it's the nature of a devotee, I would feel, to be, I don't know, I'm saying sometimes one can be pessimistic, but underneath it all, I myself, I'm always optimistic. That doesn't mean that I don't see something inherently coming down that may be problematical, may be dangerous, or may be wrong, etc. I mean, especially when we're dealing with politics, and but even in devotional life, there can be causes for alarm. But anyway, I've always found in general that two things I don't talk about is politics and religion. And I mean, especially religion. I mean, religion as you've probably seen on the web, religion in the workplace is not and will not always work out so well. And I feel I can deal with, and I can deal with devotion with persons and see. One thing I've always felt is like, say you look at a valuable stone, a valuable jewel, like a diamond or another jewel that's multifaceted. And it seems to me that Krishna consciousness is like that. It's multifaceted. You don't have, depending on who you're talking to, there's always one way of more than one way, but there's always some possibility of reaching that person on some different plane. Maybe the traditional plane of religion is completely closed because a lot of people are very against formalized religion. They don't want to hear about God. They don't want to hear about religion. They consider that religions are the source of all evil in the world. Many people will talk like that. So that's not unusual to hear that. I mean, you'll hear that in all kinds of circles. So if you just try to present things, if you just talk about God, for instance, or even if you're talking, however you're talking, somebody can always, be a little bit closed-minded because they associate even Krishna consciousness with religion. But my feeling is that I've always felt that that anybody who has some hope for them will be able to somehow or other appreciate that life itself is a very unusual experience. It's we can say it's actually a very spiritual experience. Life may not be in accord with religious concept, but life itself is spiritual, and that's, you cannot consider that life is material, that life is some product of chance chemical combination or whatever. I mean, maybe somebody does, but I feel they're pretty far. That's pretty far on not being in touch with the reality. But it seems to me that, this matter is what you're talking about. You're talking about yourself, how to be able to nurture that attitude. And also the question of anonymous is what to deal with people who present a very difficult view of their experience in Krishna consciousness. I mean, some people have passed through all kinds of difficult experiences in the name even of Krishna consciousness. They've had difficulties. Maybe with some people the difficulties might have come in the form of difficulties with, the temple they were in, or the gurukul that they were in, or the persons they were surrounded by, or even their own parents taking a very aggressive or hard way of presenting to them. Like Govinda Maharaj, like Guru Maharaj, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he said, Bhakti by force is no bhakti at all. So bhakti is not a question of being forced. No one's forcing you to chant so many rounds. Maybe somebody's parents did. But, I've seen where Govinda Maharaj, he would say, sometimes Govinda Maharaj gave initiation, Harinam, to somebody who was 4 years old. And then he'd tell the parents, if he doesn't chant, then you chant. If your child doesn't want to chant, don't force him, but you chant the 4 rounds on their beads. At least something good will come of that. But we shouldn't be wanting to force people. And how to be optimistic. I mean, personally, I'm a lot of times very deeply sarcastic. And sometimes I'll joke about things that are actually, you could say, in another religious sense, if we were different religion, I will joke about things which might be considered, what's the word, sacrosanct. You know, there's not supposed to be joke. They're not supposed to be joked with. And sometimes I do that. And sometimes I also overstep the line. I remember many times Govinda Maharaj would tell me, Maharaj, we have to be gambhir. Gambhir means very deep, you know, and serious. So sometimes there's a place where seriousness is required. But I don't know. Sometimes I feel that I should be more serious about certain things which I'm not serious enough about, by Govinda Maharaj's own instruction. I will tend to take things humorously. But I'm by nature optimistic, and I think from what most of the devotees I know, I think they're optimists. I don't think that they would be devotees if they really thought everything was so closed and dark, you know, that they had no hope. I think people are by nature, the devotees are by nature optimists. Now I do know devotees who have even taken their own life. And so I can't say that everybody's optimistic, but what can I say, you know? But how to develop that optimism, or how to develop that one has this view. Well, I don't know about London, because here I look outside and the sky is very blue and sunny, and I can walk outside and I feel very good just being outside. But, you know, I also don't feel bad when it's raining, just to be able to breathe in air and be able to see, you know, see things around me. And I was very happy when I was there in West London that I could wake up and go out to the parking lot, and sometimes I would smell the aviation fuel, and it had a very sweet smell. Have you ever noticed that, the aviation fuel in the parking lot of the West London Mott?
No.
I can't say I have.
Huh?
I can't say I have, no.
You haven't?
No.
That's strange, because when I was visiting there, sometimes, especially early in the morning, I would smell it very strongly. You smelled it, Pandita? How about Saraswati?
I don't smell anything.
It's in the morning, Maharaj, that smell.
What?
It's especially in the morning.
Go in the middle. Yes, come here.
What?
That smell happens in the morning mostly. Early in the morning, yes. It's very strong, like being in a petrol station.
Well, it's not. But it doesn't smell like petrol. It smells more.
That's a sweet smell.
It's a little sweeter, like aviation fuel, I think.
Yes, it is that, yeah.
I thought it was interesting. But not that I relish that smell, but I do. I do like, you know, I do feel it's very positive just to be outside and breathing, you know, and not to experience what's the word where you're all not to experience atrophy of all your muscles due to sitting in front of a computer day and night. That the only muscles you develop is your mousing muscles. But I don't know. What somebody else can give an opinion, because someone is asking, Gaurachandra is asking me how one will be able to develop that vision of our acharyas, that they're always hopeful and never hopeless. I mean, I just think that that's a quality of Krishna consciousness. That's my feeling. I may be wrong. I mean, I'm giving.
Maharaj, I just heard Srila Govinda Maharaj saying Krishna consciousness is very positive and optimistic. When you chant, it's very optimistic. When you see the deity, it's very optimistic. When you do devotional service, it's very happy and positive and optimistic. Like, that's what it is.
Yeah, but we also hear where Haridas Thakur, he says, for instance, Krishnadas Kaviraj, he says, anyone who says my name loses all their accumulated piety. Isn't it Krishnadas?
Yeah.
And Haridas Thakur also expresses, what is his? Haridas Thakur, he also will refer to himself like in those terms. So somebody, that may be a little bit out of kilter, so to speak, with modern values, where people want to build up their self-esteem, right? And they want to think of themselves as being, I can do this, and I'm very qualified, and they want to, especially if you're submitting some job resume, a resume to get some job, then you have to be able to, you have
Big yourself up.
Yeah, you have to be able to write it in such a way that you're the next best thing to sliced bread.
Yeah.
So but at the same time, I'm positive about everything. I may not feel like really, so to speak, pumping myself up and estimating my own worth. I don't feel like doing that at all. I find rather I don't want to do that. But at the same time, I'm positive about life. I'm very positive about the process of Krishna consciousness. I may not always think that I'm following it so well, but the process itself and everything about it, I find very wonderful.
Mm.
So I'm always happy to be able to brush the cobwebs off my bead bag, so to speak, and go outside and chant. Whatever. So, what you want to continue, follow up the question? Does Anonymous want to ask anything more, or does Gaurachandra? You're not anonymous, Gaurachandra. Do either of them want to ask anything more?
That message was sent to us earlier on, so I don't think there's a follow-up.
But read the question again. Maybe there's.
Hang on.
Who read it the first time?
Me.
Oh.
It says, what can I say / do to already initiated practitioners of Krishna consciousness, God brothers and sisters, who have become burned out, jaded, and closed-hearted persons, in their own words?
Burned out, jaded, and closed-hearted. So they're They're wearing jade rings or something. You try as you might, you may not have so much success in dealing with those persons, but that won't diminish your own optimism or your own faith, I feel. And then there's the story we always heard Guru Maharaj tell about there's one music teacher, and if somebody didn't have any previous experience with music, he would charge them one amount, and if they already knew something, he would charge them double. And then they'd ask, well, why do you charge double for somebody who's already learned something? And he said, because it's twice the work. First, I have to teach them to forget all the bad habits and all the wrong things that they've learned. And then once I brought it back to zero, so to speak, then I have to teach them. So he said it was double. First, double charge, first to make them forget what they've learned and then teach them anew. So you've heard that story. You've heard that story. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
We've heard that. And there are variations on that story, but I mean, sometimes it's not always easy to teach persons who developed many aparadhs, bad habits, so many things. And I remember when I first came in contact with a mott, I'd hear from devotees who told me that they were following the path of Rag Marg. And I looked at them like, is this what Rag Marg is supposed to be? That you act very whimsically, anything you want to do, that's Rag Marg, and anything you don't want to do, that's also Rag Marg. It's a spontaneous feeling from your heart to be negligent or foolish. That's Rag Marg. So I'd hear people talk about Rag Marg like it was like that, like I don't feel like it. Oh, so what's that mean? Oh, I'm following Rag Marg. So do you want to help us? I don't feel like it. Okay. But you know, I may, so to speak, be just a lazy jerk, but that doesn't mean I'm a Rag Margi. And I may not. Why didn't you go to Mangalarti? I didn't feel the desire in my heart. Oh, well, oh, pardon me. So anyway, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know if I've ever answered Anonymous's remark. And then as far as Gaur Chandra's question, I don't think I've answered that so much either. So can I have another question? What's behind door number 3? So how has everybody's week gone? Good? You're all in lockdown?
Yeah, pretty much.
I see lockdown seems to be
Long.
I see that people's love intensified. Husbands and wives, they love to be in enclosed spaces for eternity, right?
Yeah, of course.
It only deepens one's love.
We have a follow-up question for you, Maharaj.
All right.
From A Anonymous.
Huh?
From A Anonymous. It says, they've said, as you said, then you can just be affectionate with them. So they ask, what are examples of being affectionate to these practitioners within the boundaries of Vaishnava etiquette, e.g., sharing ABC of Krishna consciousness processes, association, book reading, scriptures, chanting kirtan, diet, sharing prasadam, etc.?
Well, I don't know. Affectionate depends on the relationship that I have with a person. If it's somebody I've known for a long time, then I will try to relate with that person in terms of that I've known them a long time, and maybe I can, as I said, if Krishna consciousness is multifaceted, like I gave the example of so many planes on a diamond, then perhaps I can deal with some particular angle of vision of Krishna consciousness that they can respond positively to, rather than, which may be some of the, some people may be very closed-minded, but they may still appreciate kirtan. They may respond to the aspect of they want to go on Harinam, or they'll respond to the singing and dancing aspect. Somebody may have that inclination. Somebody may still may be pretty, as it's mentioned, burnt out, but they have some persons who are their personal friends from years ago, and maybe they're closed-minded in general to the mission, but over the years they've maintained some friendship with somebody. And maybe one of the persons they've maintained some friendship over the years with is you. And so affectionate may be in terms of, as far as possible, being able to relate to that person, but not allowing them to commit any Vaishnava aparadh. That will be the one point. So, I mean, affectionate, and then somebody you may not want to deal with that person. You'll just maybe want to offer some, so to speak, respects to them from afar. Maybe it's a Vaishnava you've known. Maybe you'll just give them some respect from afar. I mean, in the time we were with Govinda Maharaj, I saw people who had been servants, etc., who Govinda Maharaj had to cut the relationship with them because he just couldn't deal with them anymore. I'm not, that's it comes up. So I can't just give a blanket rule for a situation when, we have to deal with things not in terms of stereotypes. We have to deal with things in terms of what is the situation and what's demanded of the situation. Maybe demand is the wrong word, but how can we relate to the situation? I mean, every person's going to be different, but some people I may just say, Prabhu, it's nice. I won't say it in so many words, but I might just say, Prabhu, it's nice knowing you. Hope you have a good life. But it's hard for me to answer a question on a broad level. Maybe it's my own inability to relate to it. But, I saw Goswami Maharaj. He was very good when he was here on one occasion. He was talking about Lord, in one of his lectures, he was talking about, this was like 20 years ago, but he was talking about Lord Buddha. and he mentioned how Buddha, his philosophy was basically atheistic, which is a remark that you'll read in the scriptures, that Buddha presented atheism, or best agnosticism. It's not negative towards Lord Buddha. I mean, he is one of the avatars. But he rejected the Vedas, so he is considered in one sense atheist. And Goswami Maharaj was talking, and here in Santa Cruz, if you say something that somebody will even interpret as negative about Buddhism, and it wasn't, it was just coming from the scriptures, and somebody said, look, something maybe like, look, dude, just stick to the Krishna stuff, all right? That's what they said. And Goswami Maharaj, the way he responded, I thought was very good. He said, yes, you're right. We should just stick to the Krishna stuff. We should talk about Krishna. We should chant Krishna's names. And then he went on talking about Krishna consciousness. Yes, you're right. We should just stick to the Krishna stuff. And then he went off on a, very nicely describing, oh, yes, Krishna's beauty, Krishna. He said, yes, we should just stick to the Krishna stuff. But the guy was interrupting his lecture and trying to cause some disturbance. But he turned it around. And I thought, well, that's a good way of dealing with that kind of negativity that someone projects. I would even say a certain amount of hostility was there. But he's quick enough, he could turn that around. And I saw how Govinda Maharaj dealt with one person in Monterey when we were there. Some lady said, she said, well, the Pope just met with the Dalai Lama. And what do you think of that? And Srila Govinda Maharaj said, I don't know, I didn't read about that. And he just kind of like, she said, and then she insisted, yes, but this just happened. And the Pope, he met with the Dalai Lama, and she was trying to push it. And then she was obviously trying to accomplish something. And then Govinda Maharaj told her, we're not really interested in politics. And she said, you're saying that the Pope meets with the Dalai Lama and that's politics, and you're saying something derogatory about the Pope and this and that. And Govinda Maharaj, he was very quick, obviously. He said, I didn't say that the Pope meeting with the Dalai Lama is politics. He says the politics is you. You're bringing this up. It's a matter of politics. And he said, I already told you previously that I didn't read about that and I didn't have so much thoughts about it. I didn't know about that incident, but you're pushing it. And he said, and you're doing so, that is the politics. Because he said, she was trying to make a big thing about, you're saying that the Pope meeting with the Dalai Lama, that's just politics. And Govinda Maharaj turned it very quickly. No, politics is coming from you. You are the one who is dealing with politics. And then it worked out where people in the audience was telling her, sit down, be quiet. You have to see by the situation what is happening. I mean, because I'm involved with Krishna consciousness, I just don't have a, so to speak, a Pollyanna view of life. Far from it. And you listen to Prabhupada speak, some of the many Bengali proverbs, especially involving Gopal Bar. I think it's Gopal Bar or Gopal Bar. And some of them are very, very funny stories with some very negative humor in there. Govinda Maharaj would also speak that way. Like he'd say, if you have to walk on your hands, do it. But it's always necessary to change, to always do something changing. And he said that, and I'm not quoting it right, but he's said that in such a way as a kind of a remark about people are always making buildings, then tearing them down and making new buildings, and always they have, whatever you do, whether it's positive or negative, you have to change. That was the nature of the Bengali comment. If you have to walk on your hands, do so, but it's always necessary to change. And he was like, what he was saying is that, why do we have to think that something has to change in order to be better? Sometimes things are okay the way they are. That kind of, there's a certain amount of that humor. But I don't know. I'll try and, what was the second anonymous question?
Hang on. It was, what are the examples of being affectionate to these practitioners within the boundaries of Vaishnava etiquette? E.g., sharing ABC of Krishna consciousness processes, association, books, reading scriptures, chanting kirtan, diet, sharing prasadam, etc.
No, not maybe, but it may be. Maybe the affection is showing just by being civil with them. Maybe the fact that I'm not getting angry with the person, maybe that's affection. Then I'm stopping myself from getting angry with the person. Maybe that's the affection. Or maybe the affection is that I'm not trying to, say something that will cause pain for that person. That may be the affection. Now, as far as this dadati prati grinati, exchanges of love, that's considered more, I would consider that more on the level of dealing with between our relationship with the higher plane. The higher plane is that we're offering ourselves and we're offering gifts and other things to the higher plane, and what we're receiving is prasadam from that plane, like what we give to Srila Govinda Maharaj, or like somebody gave a donation to Guru Maharaj and then of some money, and then they asked, what will you do with it? And Guru Maharaj said, that's not your concern. You have given something and that is appreciated. That is enough. I don't have, in other words, the way of dealing with the higher plane is we are offering something of ourselves to that plane, and what we get back from the higher plane is prasadam. Whether if we're asking advice to the acharya or to the higher Vaishnavas, we're asking for some guidance. What we get back from them, we're revealing our mind, and what we get back from them is prasadam. That's the relationship with the higher plane is always giving raw materials, whether it's our mind, whether it's gifts, whether it's food, whatever, and what we get back is prasadam. So we have that relationship with the higher plane. Then when somebody says from anonymous, they're saying, well, what would be examples of affection? whether it's in terms of reading scripture together or this or that. Well, and the affection might be to give the person some hope. Try to give the person some hope. Or the affection might be to try and give the person some guidance. Or the affection may be even to speak very frankly with the person. You know, it's one thing I can understand that you're hurt by this and this situation, but you should be very careful not to make some offense to our guardians. We don't have a stencil for dealing with life. Everything is a different situation. I remember what I was saying one time. We were with Srila Prabhupada and we were in Calcutta, and he expressed so much concern about somebody who had left the mission. And you know, he said, find that person and bring him to me, and if he won't come to me, then tell me where he is, I'll go see him, and everything like that. And this was somebody who'd left the mission. And I was really surprised hearing Prabhupada say that, because many people had left the mission. And this was not one of the most prominent devotees. He wasn't a big leader or anything. But Prabhupada was expressing so much concern about that person. Find that person, bring him to see me, and if he won't come to see me, let me know where that person is, and I'll go see that person, etc. And I was like surprised, because I knew the person, and I didn't understand why of all the people who left, Srila Prabhupada expressed so much concern. But he did. And then later on, I found out that person had taken their own life. So I feel that Prabhupada's expressing concern about that person was on the basis of him having some, perception of what was occurring.
Mm.
Because like Govinda Maharaj told me once, I was talking to Srila Govinda Maharaj, and this wasn't about anything like of that dramatic, but I was talking with Govinda Maharaj wanted to talk to him about some person who was creating a disturbance. And Govinda Maharaj, we were in front of Guru Maharaj's samadhi. Govinda Maharaj said, okay, tell me. And I said, well, maybe this is not the place, Maharaj. And then he said, okay, then we'll go to my room. And we were walking towards his room. And while we're walking, he turned to me. And I don't know how he could have perceived this. He just turned to me and he said, you want to talk to me about such and such a person. You want to talk to me about this one singular person. And I hadn't said anything to him about the person or anything. He said, you want to talk to me about this person, is that correct? And I said, how do you know Srila Govinda Maharaj? And he said, well, for some reason, I'm the Acharya of the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math. That was his reply. Like, I was totally mind blown that he could, of everything, he could just say, you want to talk to me about this person. And it wasn't anything that was so, wasn't in the headlines. It wasn't anything of any, And I said, yes, that's correct. How did you know? And he said, well, for some reason, Srila Guru Maharaj made me the Acharya, or something like that. And I can think of when that description, Chintya samasta veda nipanam shri rupa patanagam. Chintya, he knows what's knowable and what is also achintya, what is not knowable. He's aware of what is shown on the knowable or gross plane, and he's also aware of what is going on the subtle plane. And Srila Prabhupada's also reference to that particular person, bring him to me and all this, so much concern, and then later finding out what happened. I mean, it makes me the same kind of idea. Chintya samasta veda nipunam shirupa patanava. He's knower of what is knowable and knower of what is not knowable or unknown. I think that exists. So as long as I'm dealing with somebody who can at least maintain some faith in our acharya or not express himself or herself to be negative to who is my guru or who is our parampara or whatever, as long as they can be mindful of that, or they're not bringing in that, not presenting something on that kind of a problematical level, then I'm okay. I can deal with it, and I may even be able how to deal with that person. Maybe I'll deal with it through the plane of humor. Maybe I'll deal with it. Why humor? Because maybe if the thing has become so deeply ponderous and serious, maybe the only way of dealing with it is to lighten it up a little bit. Sometimes they may have some dealings with other devotees that have left them embittered. But sometimes if you can make a person make light or deal with humor about their own self, then they can lighten up a little bit. It's like one person told to me, person came to see me, and he's a sannyasi who I knew from ISKCON. And he said to me, Maharaj, why don't you come back to ISKCON? And I said, I told him, this and that, and I've been formally excommunicated, which I was. I was formally excommunicated. And then somebody said, then this sannyasi told me, he said, well, the deities don't see that. They don't see in that way, like you could still come back even though you're, so to speak, excommunicated and everything. So he kept on, and then he asked me, he said, well, first he said, why don't you come back? And then I said, well, I'll consider it. I'll ask Srila Govinda Maharaj. And then he said, oh, you're telling me that you're not a street dog, that you have a master. And I said, that's exactly what I'm telling you. That's exactly what I'm telling you. I'm not a street dog, I have a master. He said, you're telling me you're not a street dog, you have a master. I said, yes, it's exactly what I'm telling you. And then he said, okay, but I wanted to ask you if Srila Prabhupada was if you went to the spiritual world and Srila Prabhupada was in one room and Srila Sridhar Maharaj was in another room, which room would you go to first? And I said, oh, I'm in the spiritual world and Srila Prabhupada's in one room and Srila Govinda Maharaj. I said, Srila Prabhupada's in one room and Srila Sridhar Maharaj is in another room. Which room would I go to first? And I looked at him. I said, Maharaj, I said, I have much bigger problems than this. You know, I just said, Maharaj, this is not a problem. I have much bigger problems than this, which is the truth. And I told that to Srila Govinda Maharaj. And Srila Govinda Maharaj said, well, I would go into Srila Prabhupada's room first because more or less he said, I go into Srila Prabhupada's room first because he'll do like he said in such a way that Srila Prabhupada would deal with you maybe less heavily. It's been an hour, over an hour with just a cynical question. So do we have anything else? Somebody can ask me something light. Now, Gaura Chandra asked, how can we keep positive like Govinda Maharaj and our acharyas? By associating with them. Associate with them, maybe you'll become like them. Associate with the devotees. But what can we do during lockdown? Just go associate with them anyway. If you go there and everyone else is in lockdown, they'll have more time for you because you'll be the only one there.
Maharaj, I have a small light-hearted question.
Yeah.
It's you were speaking about how Krishna consciousness is multi-layered, and that sometimes makes me feel that, you know, to connect with people, you also have to be very receptive to where they're at, and then that makes me want to sort of tailor what I say about Krishna consciousness to them in a way that's palatable. But that also can be very tricky because it can make you just a bit bewildered by all the possibilities that they may be thinking about.
That's why you have to be able to first listen to them a little bit. Like once I was in Mexico, you know, Mexico's like maybe 98% Catholic. So somebody came to the temple and he wasn't a devotee. He said, look, if I see somebody that's running towards a precipice and they're about to run, you know, over the side of a precipice, should I keep quiet or do I have an obligation to yell at the person, stop, you're in danger, there's danger there, be careful. He said, if I see somebody running headlong towards a precipice, do I have a responsibility to remain silent or should I say something? And I said, all right, from that perspective, I can accept what you're saying, something of that. But I also presented my views on it. But I found we had a conversation. I could converse with him because I knew what things to talk about. Okay, 9 o'clock.
Jai Maharaj.
Dandavat. My dandavats to everyone.
Dandam Maharaj.
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 I hope you all forgive my lack of good answers.
No. Good answers. Well, your answers were perfect, Maharaj.
Beautiful.
No, not really. Imperfect questions, imperfect answers. Okay. Where's that Lavanya Moya? I see her name there, but I haven't seen her.
She's in the kitchen, cooking away for tomorrow.
You're cooking away?
Well, I just finished. Oh, sorry, right now. Just preparing for tomorrow for cooking.
What about for tonight?
Yeah, I just made some soup and I offered the cake. That's for tomorrow.
Okay, very nice.
Very simple.
Where's Jai Lalita?
I think
I'm here, Maharaj. I'm hiding.
Don't hide.
All right, good night. Good night to everyone.
Thank you, Maharaj, for your
Good
class.
night, Samantha. Good night, Samantha.
Thank you. Dandavad Pranam.
Dandavad, Subhasini.